Sailboat rental activity. You are at Galveston for a week-long vacation. Members of your family want to rent a sailboat. It will cost $15 per hour with a $20 deposit. Complete the table of values to represent the relationship between the hours and cost of renting a sailboat. So we have the table starting at 0 hours going down to 5 hours. The process is the equation that we create to find the total cost. So first, let's define our variables. H represents hours, and C represents total cost. So the process needs to include H and C in the equation. So the equation will look like this. Total cost equals $15 per hour, so 15 times H, plus a $20 deposit. So if I rent the sailboat for 5 hours, or if I rent the sailboat for 1 hour, I'm still paying a $20 deposit. So let's substitute 0 hours into the equation. 15 times 0 plus 20 equals 20. So if I don't use a sailboat at all, I'm just out my deposit. The number of hours, 1, let's substitute 1 in for hours. So I have 15 times 1 plus 20 equals 35. And go ahead and continue finishing out the rest of the table. We see that when you rent the sailboat for 5 hours, you're paying a total of $95. Next column, Y divided by X. Well, instead of using Y, we used C, so C over H. We're going to call this C over H, or C divided by H. So if you take the total cost, C, and divide by the number of hours, you get 35. For 2 hours, if you take the total cost and divide by the number of hours, you get 25. Total cost divided by the number of hours, and we get approximately 21.5. 80 divided by 4 is 20, and let's see, 95 divided by 5 is 19. So let's look at question 1. Compare the ratio of total cost Y to the number of hours X for each row of this table. Are the ratios equivalent? And we can see no, the ratios are not equivalent. How can you use the information about the ratios to help you determine if this is a proportional relationship? Well, because the ratios are not the same, we can see that this is not a proportional relationship. Write an equation relating to the number of rental hours and the total cost. Well, we've already done that. The total cost equals 15 times the number of hours plus the deposit of $20. How can you recognize a proportional relationship from an equation? Well, a proportional relationship has the ratios equivalent to each other. So we see that our ratios, C over H, are not equivalent, so this is not a proportional relationship. How many hours can you rent a sailboat on a budget of $350? Well, let's see. So when the total cost is $350, substitute that for C, 350 for C, equals 15 times H plus 20. It's a two-step equation, so draw your line. First step is to either add or subtract. In this case, we're going to subtract 20 from both sides. So we have 15 times H equals 330, and now we divide 330 by 15. 15 goes into 30 two times. 15 times 2 is 30. So H equals 22 hours. 22 hours is the amount of time that you can rent the sailboat if you have a budget of $350. Now on the back, I want you to go ahead and label your X and your Y axis and graph the coordinates using your table values. What does the ordered pair 250 represent? Well, 2 represents hours, 50 represents total cost. Use your graph to determine the cost to rent a sailboat for 6 hours. So we just can plug 6 hours into our equation. 15 times 6 plus 20. Does this graph represent a proportional relationship? How can you tell?